Welcome, everyone. This is Scott Strode, Blue Chips Global, with another podcast. Today's guest is Grady Majors. But first, I want to remind you our episode sponsor is Bracket Sports, and Bracket Sports has 13 events in 4 different states, and those are Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky. And the fourth state and 13th event is the National Championships in lovely Gatlinburg, Tennessee, which I just visited for the first time last weekend, and it is very beautiful and very expensive. But Grady, it is great to have you here. I know I've known of you for a long time. I don't know a lot about you, a lot about what you do, but that's why we're all here is to talk about that and just talk basketball on a lot of different topics and a lot of different levels. So, how you doing tonight?
Doing okay. Yeah, no, happy to be here. I am a professional talker, so this is right up my alley. But yeah, I'll cover a little bit of background, a little bit of where I think the landscape is in basketball and where I think it's going. So excited to kind of just share and see what you guys are interested in and what you're wanting to know, and how I
Sure.
can help educate the next generation.
That's what we're looking for. Well, let's start off and talk a little bit about your basketball background. How did you get started? Where did this all kind of start for you, as far as and where you ended up now? Where did this all start for you? Where does your love for the sport and all that stuff start?
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever I really started was not, I've been an athlete my whole life, but did not get started with basketball until after I actually graduated college. So getting into that, the way that I did, I started by doing recruitment for a university, and so I just general admissions recruitment
Yeah.
and worked to try to find students. However, the college I initially recruited for, their total student body was about 75% athletes. So it would always be the case that towards the end, almost move in day, for students, basketball was always looking for a few extra guys. And
Yeah.
so that kind of got me out on the recruiting trail, looking and seeing exactly what coaches were looking for, what they needed, and then how that was applied at different levels. So being able to start that way, I think, was very helpful. Just learning what coaches were actually looking for, and then also being able to go out and find that, being an athlete and being able to translate my eyes for athletics into a basketball world.
You're right. Yeah, that's a cool thing. I mean, how did you kind of shape your evaluation method, and where did you start from that? Did that come from the coaches that said, hey, you need to look for these 5 things or these 3 things, or is it, if he can dribble a basketball and he's got a 3.8 and above, we're going to take him? I mean, how did that, and getting into basketball, I guess, so late, how did you kind of shape that, that eye for basketball talent?
Yeah, so I mean, you'll see with pretty much any sport, there is a general athleticism that students are required to have. And you never really start out as an expert, no matter what you're getting into. And so you learn that kind of adapts depending on the program and what they're looking for and what level they're looking for, out of an athlete and out of a student. You'll have a lot of high academic schools that are looking for the grades first. The
Yeah.
athleticism, shooting ability, those kind of things kind of come second because of the demands of their school. And then you'll have some other universities that, if he's got the body and he's got the potential and all of those things, we can work with the grades. And so you see exactly what a university's needing, and then you kind of find the basketball player based off of that. So I think every athlete has a perfect fit at a school. Not everybody's going to be, just your cream of the crop, top power four level basketball player and beyond. But if you're looking to go to the next level, there are schools that can be tailor fit towards you and your skill level, and also those academics are a big factor.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's really interesting that, and one of the big things I learned, as you just explained, in all of this is, you think on kind of until you're down in the weeds with it, you kind of on the outside looking in, and you think, well, they're just looking for the best players, and there's so many different layers and so many different entry points and all that for athletes and for basketball players especially, where it's it is that, but there it's so much more. They drill it down so much farther to where it's a guy that has to, number one, has to fit whatever position that they have need of. It has to fit, a guy that has a skill set that fits whatever system they're running. A guy that does or does not fit their culture. And of course, the academics, and that's a hard thing, and it's hard to explain to parents. But I have that conversation frequently with parents where I kind of let them know. They're like, well, this kid's getting recruited and that kid's getting recruited. My kid is kind of better than them, or bigger, or this or that or the other, and it's obviously, I understand why they think that way, but it's just never that. And then you throw in, the human component of it, where everybody sees it through a different lens. They see athleticism, as a different thing. They see skill, and then you've got some coaches value this skill more than this skill, and some, you've got all these different things. And I think that's the hard part for parents to really understand, is how far in how many different directions that gets drilled down until these coaches find exactly what they want. And because they're not just taking shots in the dark, they are most of them are very meticulous in who they want and what they want a player to look like. So I think that's really interesting. Um,
And the sorting, I would say, has gotten more and more specific. But I'll also add, on top of all of those factors, I had a unique opportunity whenever I was first getting started to meet with some executives for the Memphis Grizzlies. And the biggest piece of information I would give to any athlete, regardless of their sport, is they said it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. So,
yeah,
really trying to make those connections is going to be a very vital part of that recruitment process, because, I know who, LeBron is. LeBron doesn't know me. So that's very
sure.
important. I don't know, it'd be kind of cool. But as far as I know, he does not. So it is very important to remember that you've got to make those connections and really focus on that part of the recruitment as well, not just the game. The game's always going to be important. Stay in the gym, be a gym rat, but it's also important to be making those connections. So that way, whenever we do get into our, sophomore, junior, senior year, you are already have those established and can make those connections, turning them into interest and then offers and commitments and signings.
Dude, I love that, because that's a big part of what I do with clients that subscribe and that I work with. Is I really preach, and I know some people probably think this is totally ridiculous, but I preach to them to email early and often, not too often, but quarterly, almost like a sequential marketing plan, and send out emails and send them that are specific to the time of year it is, what you have coming up and what you've accomplished in the last few months and those types of things. And the it's not a fluke. The kids that have done it and have done it at done it almost exactly how I've asked them to do, they have had tremendous success. Tremendous. I mean, I wish I could just blurt it all out, like, some of these kids, some of these guys are hearing from, who they're having conversations with, because some people may not believe me, when I tell them, some of these, but and I know one parent will be listening to this and he'll know what I'm talking about. But like it just establishes that connection early. And I tell just ask for an invite to the camp. When you're a freshman or sophomore, and get to know them. They can see your face. They see you on the floor, and then you go directly in the file to invite back next year. And then they're going to take a little closer look. And they're going to get to know you a little more personally. They'll start following you a little bit on social media. And keep them updated throughout the year. And if it's a school, but the other thing is, like, if it's a school that you can't go to, or you're not interested in academically or whatever, then don't bother, obviously. But if you're a Division III level kid, trying to email Russ Hodge right now is probably not going to not going to do it's probably going to be a waste of time, even though
Yeah.
you're perfectly able to, but don't waste your time. But and that's another thing I work with people is like understanding what level you need to start at. Like this is where you need to be. That doesn't mean that's where you're going to end up, but this is where you need to be right now. And so it's really interesting you said that, because that is such a big deal. The networking and just building a relationship. But it starts really, really slow, where you're not going to hear anything back for a little bit. But it doesn't mean that they haven't looked, and they haven't maybe filed you into that. Hey, check up on this guy later, or we're going to take a look at him in AAU season. All those things, because all those things have happened from these emails. They have all happened from these emails. One kid in particular that I worked with, and he's actually one of the first guests I've had on here. He had zero, I mean nothing, and the first interaction he had was with a Division I, and because everything he does is eye popping, from academics to what he looks like physically. And the summer before his senior year, I told him, start emailing these Big West coaches and tell them, demand that who you are, and demand that he lives in California. And I said, demand that you come to their camp, because you're going to be a Big West player. And he did, and sure enough, one took interest in him immediately, and he tweets a picture with him and the coach in the gym after the camp, and the next thing you know, two more Big West coaches are jumping. So like, just that, but it took him 6 months, 8 months to get to that point. He didn't hear back from a lot of people. He really didn't. But he built those relationships, and it's going to work out. He's going to be a Division I Big West player, probably not this coming season, but the season after. So I love that you said that. That just hits home so hard with me.
Yeah, with the relationships, and I'd say another thing, you reaching out, obviously emailing those coaches. Also, find those people like yourself and I, who we're communicating with coaches a lot.
Yeah.
The people that have those connections and have those relationships with coaches, they're going to be in that coach's ear, and that coach is going to listen to them sometimes a lot more than just sending that general email. So really making sure that you have the relationships not only with those college coaches, but also with the people who are in that college coach's ear.
Yeah.
Because the college coach, before going out and doing a blind search, he's going to send a text, send a call to any of those guys that he trusts their valued opinion on whenever he's going out and trying to find more players. And sometimes that's going through, JUCO programs. Sometimes that's going through, I primarily will work with high school athletes, because I do think that that's getting more and more difficult, of an avenue to be able to get to, some of those larger schools students might be looking to work with.
Yeah, that's interesting too, and that is a very common occurrence. I'm sure, obviously, it is with you, it is with me as well. Where, and it may not even be somebody that's a client of mine that I work with, but it just may be just a kid in general that they might think I know, and a lot of times I do, and they'll be like, "Have you seen this kid play?" what kind of competition has he played against? Is he really 6'3" or is he 6'1" or is he, all those different things.
Yeah.
And so they do, they'll do their due
Yeah.
diligence, and kind of cross check everything, and
Yeah.
and just say,
And sometimes it's not has nothing to do with basketball. It has nothing
right,
to do with the school. And sometimes I just get a character reference. I'm like, hey,
yes,
is
yes,
he the kind of guy that he portrays himself to be?
yeah,
And so I know that it takes even on our end, not just knowing the athlete and their abilities athletically or their grades, but also knowing them as a person,
absolutely.
to be able to communicate some of those inside things that coaches are really looking to know.
Yeah, absolutely, and kind of checking up on parents. I mean, I've had those conversations as well. Is like, hey, are these parents okay? Are they idiots? Are they, I've heard some stuff. Is this true? Is this not? So you know, one thing I'm always upfront with a coach is if I've seen him in person or not. That means a lot. Seeing him in person is a big deal to me,
Yeah.
and I won't go full send on a kid that I haven't seen because I don't, number one, it's my reputation on the line, as
Yeah.
well as theirs, and I'm not going to risk any of that, but I'll be upfront and honest and tell them that, before I get really go. But if I have seen him in person and I feel comfortable saying, hey, absolutely, this kid's a lock, you really need, I don't mind doing that, and I'm never wrong, so that's, I'm back 1,000, right? So, but yeah, that happens a lot. And I haven't really thought about that because those are always just kind of like quick text messages or calls. That hey, do you know
Yeah.
this? Do you know this? And of course for me, it's a lot of times it's West Virginia kids. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting you say that because I can't that's something I hadn't really thought about happens, but it does. Like you said, it does.
Yeah, very often. Especially, I know right now my phone's been blown up with a lot of JUCOs for this 2026 class. So, because for the most part, you have your one offs every once in a while that they're looking for their D2 program, the D high level D1 kid that's still out there unsigned. But you got a lot of JUCOs right now that are hungry to find whoever they missed, and being able to capitalize on those things can be very valuable as well. Having relationships at every single level.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that JUCO thing is something I've tried to really expand on. We only have one JUCO in West Virginia, and there's not a whole lot that's really close. So, I am trying to, follow more what Brandon Goebel and Jeff Dolan, those guys do with verbal commits and all of that. And then
Yeah.
Swanee, Brett Swanson down in South Carolina has Swanee's round ball. So trying to follow more of what they do and pay a little more attention to how the JUCO stuff works because it's kind of a different animal for sure as far as just about every aspect other than what's on the floor. But
Yeah.
yeah, so. Um, So, so how did you get like how I mean what are you what is your capacity right now in the recruiting world? So you obviously do. I mean, are you just straight evaluating for coaches? Are you still helping recruit? Are you just doing, like me, like I do a ton of just player referrals, just like, hey, you need
Yeah.
a few guys, here's some guys to look at. I mean, what are you doing the most of, I guess I should say.
The most of, kind of like you mentioned, like I pride myself on being in the gym, because that's where I'm going to actually be able to evaluate the most.
Yeah.
But I think it's also a lot of it's just giving player development advice, figuring out how are you going to change, not just watching the game, but then going and communicating with those athletes that you're
Yeah.
working with and saying, hey, this is where we're at, this is where we need to get to, this is how we're going to get there, is very valuable. And then whatever, a lot of the times the coaches just kind of they find you,
Yeah.
um, because whenever you have the many relationships with players out here in the country, then it can be something where they're like, oh, well, he's working with him and he's working with him. And we've already been tracking this guy for a little bit and
Right.
he vouches for him.
Yeah.
And so those coaches start to come around and be like, hey, what can you tell me about this guy? What can you tell me about this one? Is there anybody else that's not on our radar that you think needs to be? So it goes back and forth between the player development, some evaluation, um, and then networking with coaches as well. I know whenever we hit those live periods in the summer, I'm usually at one of those larger circuit events to be able to coordinate with as many coaches as possible, just to build further a larger network and helping coaches realize that hey, there are a lot of athletes out here in high school who, as much as the next level is starting to get a little congested
Yeah.
with older players, it is something where those high school athletes can really make a difference in your program.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And a lot of what I do as well is just you're probably like me. I do a lot more stuff for free than I've ever done. For subscriptions or whatever the case may be. It's like you just you love it. You just do it for really for fun, and there's a lot of fulfillment in it when you see kids get a chance that you helped them, kind of helped them find a spot, and they get there, and then they start to kind of blossom a little bit in their basketball. What
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on the current state of recruiting? Like, do you think we will? So I had Jeff Boland on, and
Yeah.
and I was under the impression that there was this siege on JUCO players, and he said it's actually taken a little step back because the transfer portal has even affected the JUCO world, where it's kind of set it back a little bit. So, but I told him, I said, man, I still feel like this transfer stuff is going to cool off a little bit. It's going to take a lot of guys falling forward on their face, and really a lot of failures, really, to be honest.
Yeah.
And before it starts to cool itself off, and then the JUCO stuff pick back up. But I told him, I said, had no idea that was actually the case, but I do feel like the JUCO stuff will regain more momentum than it's ever had eventually. Um, I mean, where do you kind of see that going? Maybe
Yeah.
2, 3, maybe a little bit longer than that. But where do you feel like? I mean, do you think the transfer portal? I understand that they could just kibosh it tomorrow and say no more, just one time and that's it or whatever. But I don't think they're going to.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think it's going to kind of diminish a little bit, or just keep ramping up?
Yeah, I think you're seeing just as a whole. I've spoken with several coaches, several other guys who are in the industry, and they're all agreeing that college basketball is getting older. So that is one of the primary reasons, like I mentioned earlier, that I'm working with high school students, is because they're easily the ones who are having the biggest disadvantage in all of this, because you have your transfer portal, you have your JUCO players, and all of those come with something that's extremely valuable to coaches, and that's experience at the next level. So you are seeing college basketball get older, and I know that there's a lot of coaches that have been very vocal about how they don't agree with that, because they are still trying to give that opportunity to younger players coming straight out of high school. I know that Coach Izzo spoke out about it at Michigan State. Coach Cal here in Arkansas, where I am, he is very, very vocal about it. Haven't heard too many things that I would disagree with on that front. So I do think as a whole it's getting older. I think you are seeing the transfer portal being something that's very, very much so utilized. I don't foresee that going away. I think it will become more restricted, but I do think that the transfer portal is going to be around for quite some time.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, and I was just going to say that the JUCO players having that experience is valuable. They've come in, they've developed their game. College coaches are looking to go and win titles, win games,
Yeah.
win titles, and then players are moving if they deem themselves to be more successful than what the program they're currently at is, or if they're looking to get more playing time. Some people have aspirations of going to the NBA. Others have aspirations of starting and playing 4 years in college.
Right.
So it really depends on what that looks like as far as your goals and also your abilities to go and play at that next level.
Yeah, that's I couldn't agree more, to be honest with you. I'm really I was really anti-portal from for the really until this year. And again, I refer back to Jeff Dolan because he has his thumb on all that stuff so well. And I told Jeff, I used Deshaun Good as the perfect example. I said, there's a kid that grew up 90 minutes from me. I watched him in high school. Um, I actually tried to. This is the craziest thing. And some people may not believe. I don't know if I've told this story on air or anything like but before, but the spring after his junior year, he'd reached out to me and said, "Hey, could you give me a little bump? Give me a little help here. Reach out to some coaches for me." I said, "Absolutely, dude." So I did, and I got silence from you wouldn't believe. If I told you the list of names of people that just went totally
Yeah,
silent when I suggested they take a look at him, except for two guys, and the two guys that he first played for out of high school, and one was Mike Burris, and the other one was Bob Williams at Fork Union, and the Burris thing worked out quite well, and and the rest is kind of history, as they say. And here he is, on the cusp of playing for, maybe a Kansas, maybe a St. John's,
yeah,
maybe it's going to be somebody big, unless WVU can find a Brinks truck to bring in and keep him keep him in West Virginia.
yeah,
Um, that's I'm afraid that's probably what it's going to take. And um, I would, now after seeing his story, like I wouldn't want. There's probably more stories like that than him, and like that's such a great story. Like he has done the right thing and taken advantage of every single opportunity to the max. To
yeah,
the absolute max, he has taken. So I just, I think so highly of him and how he's handled all of it, and he's maneuvered through it like I mean nobody else to me.
yeah,
So I would never want to take that opportunity from a kid. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I'm kind of like I'm all in. Let's just let's just do it. I do think I'm a free market capitalist kind of guy, so I do think it will. My mind says it will clean itself up eventually, where you won't have 1,500 kids left without a place to play, which
yeah,
is kind of what we're hurling towards right now. Um, I'm probably wrong on that. I'm probably dead wrong on that, but my pea brain says that I think that's what's going to happen. Um, but I think too. I think that can. I don't think they have to do anything with the transfer portal. I think they can adjust the NIL stuff to where it would calm it down. To where they just say everybody gets $100,000, and if you want to do an NIL, a real NIL, go ahead. If AJ DeBonsa wants to, get sponsored by whoever, I mean, Jumpman and Jordan and makes
yeah,
$20 million on top of his 100,000 that he gets, then go. That's a real NIL. You know what I mean? I think that's where we're missing the mark with all of this, because I think that's it's not just affecting the budgets with the schools, but it's affecting the transfer portal. It's the biggest driver, I think. I don't think all these guys are just unhappy and want to move. I mean, it's they're trying to better themselves financially as anybody would, as you would, as I
yeah,
would. in a regular 9 to 5 job, like anybody would do that if they know the opportunities out there. So, I mean, that's what LinkedIn's for. You can go out there and you're in the open market for for the job transfer portal. I mean, it's the same thing,
Yep.
really. So, I mean, they're adults. They should be able to do that in my mind. But like I said, I think you can control it with the money. I think if you do a real NIL and you use the collectives to just pay everybody across the board, equal money, then go for it. That's what I would like to see happen, but I'm probably wishing on a star there.
So I'd say there's a large part of the money that is can be a motivating factor,
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the things you're seeing right now. Whenever you're seeing that you have the high schoolers trying to get into college basketball and move their way up in the rankings that way, and then you have other guys who are in the NBA trying to take a step back
yeah,
and come back to college. And
yeah,
I do think the money is definitely a motivating factor there.
absolutely.
Um, but I would also say that you have guys transfer for a number of reasons. And, sometimes it's a fit. I think we've seen a lot of transfers that they're going into programs and they thought they were, going to be the guy and given the reins. And then
Right.
they run into a situation where somebody transfers in and that's not the case.
Yeah,
And so being able to kind of find that fit, find that coach that has confidence in you and then makes you a better player because of it. I think there's a variety of reasons that they're going to transfer. I agree that money plays a factor. Um, I'd also say who the coach is going to play a
oh
big
yeah,
part of it, and the
absolutely.
connections that he has. Um, but I would agree that there should be a limit on how many times these guys are able to transfer, at least before they have to sit out. I
Yeah,
think that if you're transferring every single year, then you are really running into a problem where there's no relationships that are built. You have nothing to fall back on. Your fan
right.
base is kind of not fully supportive
Yeah,
of the guys who are just for hire, so to
yeah.
speak. So I do think that there needs to be a little bit more restriction put in the transfer portal, but I don't foresee it going anywhere.
Yeah, is the red shirt rule? I'm a little bit confused on that. Did they take that completely away, or is that just
In
simply?
regards to the students' eligibility,
Yeah, yeah. Is that still a thing in Division One? I know in Division Two, I think it still is, but I remember the talk about all they were just going to do. There would be no more, red shirts or walk-ons or whatever. It would just be, like you were there and you were going to play and you had X amount of years to play and that was it. I don't know. I don't know how much of that ever, if that was just talk or.
yeah, no. As far as I know, the red shirt rule is still in existence. Because I've seen it at multiple Division One schools, and it does list it on rosters still that they're listed as redshirt freshmen.
Yeah.
So I know that it's still around currently. As to the future of that, I'm not entirely sure on the status.
Yeah. Do you think that's something that might go away or something maybe that should go away? Would that kind of
I wouldn't
correct a little
recommend
bit
it
of
just
this?
because I think maintaining eligibility for the younger players is going to be something that's important as college basketball continues to get older and older. If you come into a program and you need some development because you're not, that top 100, top 300 athlete that's coming in and getting a significant number of minutes the first year, that red shirt is a very large opportunity
Yeah.
for a lot of those high school players coming out.
I do like, and I don't know if this ever went into effect. I remember the talk about this too, is where um, JUCO guys would get, if they went to JUCO, um, what was it, 1 year, they would still have 4 years eligibility. If they went 2 years, they would still have 3 years eligibility. I do like that. I really like that because I think it makes the game better. I think that makes the college game better on every level to where we're getting real development at most places. We're getting good
Yeah.
development. because there's obviously the Division One JUCOs are incredible. Most of the Division Twos are really really good. So there's a lot of places out there for that development. Of course, there's not enough places for everybody to go, but there's
Yeah.
the top guys, the top 300, 400, 500, whatever, they could find a place if they need it. But yeah, I would like to see that. That's one of the things. If I were king for a day, I would do that. Like first thing, that'd be the first stroke of the pen.
Yeah, I think it. I mean, I think it has its merit as far as development. I think that you would also risk having an even older college basketball than what there currently is, because you would have a lot more of those guys staying at JUCOs for 2 years, and then you would have a college senior being 25, 26, which is what we saw a lot of with COVID, and then giving those extra
Yeah,
years of eligibility. So that's kind of the downside of providing those extra years of eligibility, is it even puts a tighter grip on that funnel of students who are able to come through in the high school ranks.
yeah. I think you could, then in those cases, you could probably say, if that's the route you're going, then you don't really need a red shirt year.
Yeah.
Unless maybe it would be a medical red shirt, I guess. But I think you could make some adjustments there, and I don't know. They really just need to come on here and talk to me and you about it, and we'd have this straightened out in about a half hour. But that's probably not going to happen this week. So, talk to me a little bit about I'm always projecting the direction of a lot of different things. So, one of the big topics, especially on social media, there are one of my TikTok feeds is full of people talking about the demise of AAU basketball, the evils of travel basketball, and then every fourth or fifth person will tell you how great it is, why you should play, where you should play. Um, I've got all kinds of opinions on it. I, what are your thoughts? I know you do a
Yeah.
lot of the higher level shoe circuit stuff where you're
Yeah.
evaluating and in the gym with that. I have a son that plays on the big shots circuit,
Okay.
um, and so I've seen a lot of that, and I've seen a lot of the grassroots stuff, and been to Pit Jam Fest, that Hoop Group does. I've been there
Yeah.
years in a row. I'm going to miss it this year, which I hate. That sucks. But I've been there, so like that's as big as it gets, at least in this part of the country. Like, what's your thoughts on the direction of kind of where all this is heading? And I'll follow up with with what I think.
Yeah, I think it's a really good avenue for athletes who are continuing to develop. I think the number one thing that I'd be looking for if I was a high school or junior high athlete is a program that's actually going to develop me,
Yeah.
rather than, in many cases I've seen several programs just use athletes
Yeah.
for their name or for their athletic ability, and not really turn them into anything more. So really doing an in-depth analysis of, hey, what does this program have to offer?
Right.
And every athlete, every parent who's paying the travel bills and all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
for those unsponsored teams, they you have different things that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So I think the number one thing though you should be looking for out of your programs is a program that's going to develop you as an athlete, as a human being, and looking for that development will be crucial. I know personally, as a basketball fan, I'm a really big fan of AAU basketball,
Yeah.
because I get to go out and you're seeing guys who are not just from your state, from your region. You're seeing athletes from all over the country and several from all over the world. I mean, there's a larger and larger influx of international players
Yeah.
that are coming over and playing in those AAU, starting out in prep academies and things like that, and then going and playing for AAU teams as well. So I think that the opportunities that it gives for a student, especially when it comes to exposure, are very advantageous, because you're going to have opportunities to go all over the country, and you're going to be not only getting that exposure yourself, but also having more coaches' eyes on you and more scouts' eyes on you.
Sure.
So it increases the likelihood that a coach is going to see something they like in you. And there's a lot of politics and everything that go into it, but I do think that at the end of the day, it comes down to, in recruiting, it comes down to those relationships again, and making those on the road. I know I had a great opportunity this past summer, whenever I was over in South Carolina for Adidas 3SSB championships, and then also for EYBL Peach Jam. That I had several nights that I was not done for the day. We were going out with parents and other scouts and agents and everything like that, and really making those connections, because if you don't do that, then very, very similar to an athlete who's not making those relationships. If I lose those relationships, it doesn't go very well for me either.
Sure.
And so I see there's a lot of merit in things, to AAU basketball, as long as you're in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
If you're in it for the wrong reasons, if you think that the 4 foot nothing center is gonna make it Division One, like, probably not the most likely thing in the world. But if you're going out there and you're saying my goal is to get better,
Yeah.
and my goal is to continue to play basketball at a high level, then I think there's a lot of merit and a lot of benefit to it.
Yeah, I agree with all that. That's and like my son, for example, like he's playing to get better. He's got to be a better high school player, and so it's seek the competition, go. Where we're at, there's not a lot of options as far as like go play in a league, and play against older players or better, like, that's
Yeah.
the tough thing with West Virginia is, there's not a lot of players, there's not a lot of higher level players, and not that he is, but like you always want to find some guys that are better than you, to play against, and so that's been our purpose. If it turns into something along the lines of some interest from college, then so be it. But we're just trying to win games in the high school season right now.
Yeah.
And get him better, and it really has. It's he's very lucky to be with West Virginia Reign, and they are truly a developmental program that they've helped him tremendously. But here's one of the things that. I got to let this go because I talk about this too much, and it's one of the things. If you listen to any of the previous podcasts, you probably know what I'm going to say. Here's one of the things that bothers me with, and it's not, and I always say it's shoe programs, but it's not always them. You've got your top tier teams, with your shoe programs, as you should have, and then everybody's got the let's just call them what they are, the B teams, the second tier, and most of those kids aren't Division One, if any of them. And no, don't get me wrong, I'm sure you've seen some kids pop out of there that are. But my axe to grind with that is, I feel like, well, I don't feel like, I know what happens a lot, because I've seen this locally, is kids going on these B teams, and instead of being somewhere somewhat regionally local, where the Division III and Division II schools within a couple hundred miles of them can see them, they're in Milwaukee, or they're in Dallas, or they're in Denver, or they're in whatever. And two things: nobody out there, there's very rarely is it going to be a Division II or Division III school that's located in New Mexico that's at a tournament in Dallas, and they're going to say, yeah, I'm interested in this kid from West Virginia. I think he, or Ohio, or Kentucky, or name, insert, Eastern Mid-Atlantic state here. It's just not going to happen, because there's 10,000 kids between here and there that look just like your kid, and you
Yeah.
know what I mean. Like, and by the same token, West Liberty isn't flying to Dallas to recruit a kid from West Virginia.
Yeah.
You know, now they may go there to see a kid, from Texas or Oklahoma or something like that. But I, I feel like we're kind of chasing our tail on that part of it, and I've seen it do some real disservice to some kids at some different programs where
Yep.
they just haven't had enough exposure regionally. I mean, one kid in particular we had at our Hoop Summit event got seen by a Division II coach. That school is located about 90 minutes from where this kid goes to high school, and the
Yeah.
first time he ever saw him was at our Hoop Summit event in August. And he was really confused to how he didn't know anything about this kid. And I'm like, and he asked me, he said, where's this kid been all summer? And I said, well, everywhere but West Virginia. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, everywhere but, I said, they don't really play anywhere around here close. And I could see the confused look in his face, like, what's going on here? So that part of it I kind of hate. I ain't gonna lie. I kind of hate that. But I get it from the business standpoint. That has to happen evidently for the shoe companies. They're Nike's, maybe hitting some tough places where they got to have some B teams in the gym to make ends meet. I don't know, but also I also understand, and I've said this often. I remember how I was at that age. I would have thrown recruiting out the window. I wouldn't have cared. Like, who gives a crap? I want to play against the best guys in Chicago or Atlanta or what. Like, I want to go see what that's like, And maybe I don't belong, but I'm gonna find out. Like, I would have wanted to do that no matter what. I wouldn't have cared about recruiting. Like, that's what would have been at the front of my mind right then at that age. I remember exactly how my brain worked, back then. Like,
Yeah.
I would have thought the same exact way. Like, and I get some of it is status, but I do think there's some kids like that just I still think there's some kids like that they just want to play against the best players they can possibly have an opportunity to play against, and that part of it I get.
Yeah.
Probably part of what drives that, but still, from a recruiting standpoint, it's not the most efficient thing for them to do, I guess I should say.
Yeah, and I do think I'm going to keep preaching it through the whole podcast today. So it also comes back down to those relationships. Like, if that player has failed to make relationships where they are, it would not surprise me that a coach that's close to home doesn't know who they are.
Right.
Or has, if they haven't had enough exposure in their area,
Yes.
then it does not surprise me that a coach wouldn't know who they are. If you're going all over the country and you're not making relationships with anybody and not developing those, then it's probably not the best idea to just travel for travel's sake. But if wherever you're making those relationships, that's where the people are going to see you from. So I think that you can run into that problem of having the guy who goes all over the country and the guys at home have never heard of them. And that's the main reason, is they haven't made relationships with somebody like you or I. They haven't made relationships with any of the coaches. Their coaches in their high school program or in their AAU program are not promoting them to the people that are close to home. They're trying to get them to go a little bit farther for either the program's sake or for their name's sake. So it does come down to relationships every single time. If you're building them farther away from home or closer to home, where you build those is where you're going to end up. So I think that that's important to remember as well whenever you're out on the road. Going to all these AAU events is, hey, what are these guys doing to make those connections both at home, whether that's during the high school season or during the summer.
Yeah.
And what are they doing whenever they're on the road? Are they, going and playing and then going back to the hotel? Are they talking to anybody after they get done with their
Yep.
game? Are they going and making those connections?
Yeah. That's yeah. We just kind of double back on that point, and you just tied both ends there with. It still comes back to relationships. That's something I hadn't I really hadn't thought about as much as I talk about that. Yeah, it doesn't matter where you play. Like you still have to build those relationships no matter what. And I I say this often, and I think the operative word here is proactive. You just have to be proactive in your recruiting. You have to be proactive in your approach. And I tell kids like it's your business. Like this is you have to approach it like a businessman, and part of your business is the administrative part where you got to sit down at your computer and you got to send some emails out and you've got to make some contact with them. You can't just sit on the couch watching Netflix and just send a DM to a coach and say, "Yo, what's up? I'm 6'6" and I shoot and I just say that because I get that all the time is "Yo, what's up?"
Yeah.
DM. But I mean that's just you just hit the nail on the head. It still comes back to relationships no matter what.
And you see guys being proactive on both sides of it. You don't even the players are not the only ones who are proactive. I know here in the past few years, I've transitioned to going younger and younger in who I'm scouting, because you're going to have coaches that they've already heard of some of those high level players by the time they're sophomores, juniors, seniors. This past summer, I did a lot more junior events, junior EYBL, junior 3SSB, going to some of those type of events, as well as a recruiter, because that's where no one knows them. Said Instagram might know them,
Yeah.
but coaches don't know them.
Yeah.
And so by going in there and looking for those players as well who are younger and who actually show a lot of potential, that's how I've had to be proactive in how I'm recruiting, is I'm not going out there and I'm not finding the guy that everybody knows.
Yeah.
Yet who doesn't have that name, who doesn't have that 24/7 ESPN ranking, but the guy who has the potential to get there in the future.
Yeah.
And so that's critical on both ends to be proactive in that.
That's interesting. I'd never thought about it that way, but that's a very interesting way to go about it, and you're kind of beating everybody to the punch, and
Yeah.
just you're working a little bit smarter instead of harder in that realm. So
Yeah, and it's amazing what some of these younger guys can do. I mean, I know right now I had the opportunity whenever I was at Peach, they were doing their junior EYBL event as well. It's Torrey Walker Jr. right now out of the Southeast region, killing it. And I was shocked whenever I saw the shooting ability, all of the ability that these athletes out there have to handle the ball at such a young age, and the IQs that they're developing, because they're working with the right guys. They're spending time in the gym constantly.
yeah.
Even as younger athletes, you're able to see a lot of those qualities
Right.
that a college coach is looking for before they're even getting into high school. So it is something that's very unique in how they're approaching the game.
Yeah, that's yeah, you're not wrong there, and especially when you go to those higher level events like you are, you see that's even the young guys. You're going to see the best. I mean, they're
Yeah.
you're going to see the best for sure. Very very interesting. Um, One last thing I wanted to cover, and you hit it on it just a little bit there earlier. Um, where do you think the influx? We've seen this huge influx of high level NBA players, from that are international players. we're starting to see it kind of trickle down into the Division One schools. I did notice. I'm such a nerd. I do this a lot. Is I look at teams' rosters when I'm watching. I'll get on the ESPN app and I'll look at their
Yeah.
rosters and see, see the names and see where they're from and all this stuff. And I remember, I think it was Florida. Like they had, you may know this. I mean, half of their roster was, and it wasn't
Yeah.
just guys that were just on the team. They were the main players.
The guys. Yeah.
And I noticed in the so many teams in the NCAA tournament were built that way. Um, here, here's kind of my theory. What I think is going to happen is, and some people have kind of resisted me on this, but we saw this happen in baseball. It's already happened. Like it's over. Like it's happened.
Yeah.
We had this influx of kids from the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico or whatever, what have you, and they kind of took the sport over. And now you've even got an injection of Korean and Japanese players that are and the American player is the most, I don't know what you want to say, the most insignificant part of baseball, it seems like now. But and I know that's not totally, I mean, I'm probably over exaggerating a little bit, but I kind of see basketball going the same way. I really do.
Yeah.
Because kind of what we're just talking about, because we've got this AAU model there, AAU and high school basketball model here. Over there, it's completely different. It's much more structured. It's much more efficient. It's much more. It's just better. I mean, let's just face it. It's just better in a lot of ways. There isn't, obviously, we know athletically, people, kids over there don't compare. But daggone, those kids can play. I mean, they're
Yeah.
really, really fundamental. It's just, I I've argued with some some people in the past here, and very recently, I say in the last year or two, about the resurgence of a big man
Yeah.
coming back into basketball. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it right now. And I really think the old school basketball that I grew up watching, in the old Big East and the old Big Eight, and how basketball was played in the '90s. And I'm not being nostalgic. I just think I think you're going to see that kind of structure of your 1 through 5 on the floor. I think you're going to see that kind of come back to that. I think we're starting to see it already. But anyway,
Yeah.
it was really interesting, to see these teams use these international bigs and use them like playing high-low, and it can only be
Yeah.
because you got to be really smart and really ball savvy to do that. Be a good passer and be really aware and have good vision and all. And it's all these things that kind of encompass what an international player is, and the things
Yeah.
they're taught. So I think, I mean, it's just going to be a firestorm of, I really do. And I know in the MEC, the Division Two, the Division Two conference that based here in West Virginia, it's the same thing. Like they're coming.
Yeah.
I mean, they're here. So am I full of it, Grady, or is this? And I don't hate it. I don't even hate it, but
Yeah.
I kind of hate it because it makes it tougher on American players. But at the same time, I want good basketball. So
Yeah.
I think they have made the NBA better. At the same time, I think that those players have made NCAA basketball better. I mean, what do you think? I mean, do you think it's just a fad? Is it just, what do you think? Do you think it's kind of here to stay and grow?
I don't see the international players letting it go anywhere. For sure. I think that you are seeing it more so right now. You're having a lot of those international guys really making their names known in the NBA ranks, but you are starting to see it at college programs now as well. I think the biggest example you'd have of it right now in college basketball would be Illinois.
Yeah.
Illinois is known for having basically all Eastern European players. So they are very much so drawing from that international talent. Um, Ultimately, I'd say it comes down to who's improving and developing their programs and their players, as well as building that infrastructure. I think one of the reasons you've seen more international players recently is because they've started to establish that infrastructure and what it looks like to bring players over here from all over the world. I know the biggest hotspots right now, obviously Eastern Europe's pretty popular. A lot of very fundamental Australian players.
Yeah.
They can light it up from three. So you're seeing a lot of those guys. And then whenever you're talking about your traditional big man coming back, Africa's loaded with a lot of height
Yes.
and size.
Yes.
And so you're seeing, I know, in the Olympics recently, we saw the South Sudan team really, really making an impact
Yeah.
because of their size and their versatility. So I do think that the game is an international game.
Yes.
And as the players and the countries continue to build that infrastructure and continue to develop their players, you're going to see more and more coming here to the States to showcase their talent. And I think it has lit a fire as well under some of these guys in the States
Yeah.
that they're saying, I'm not going to let somebody come to my country and outwork me and outplay me. So you're seeing some of that competitiveness between different countries, some national pride, but then also you're seeing a lot of guys come over ready to prove it.
Yeah.
And there's several program. I know several AAU programs that have started building that into their teams.
Yes.
I,
Yes.
I'd say some of the ones you've seen recently. Biggest example I've seen within the past year would be the Iowa United team. Has really focused a lot on that international recruitment and bringing over players that have that size, strength, and versatility to their game. And college coaches are seeing it and they're loving it. Houston just signed the big man that went through that program. Oregon signed the 2027 guy who's come through that program, sitting at 7'3" right now as a 2027 athlete. So these guys are coming and they're ready to play. And I do see that game internationally developing a lot more than maybe what we're seeing here in the U.S., but it's also developing much more rapidly because the U.S. has had that infrastructure and that development kind of established for quite some time now. So you're seeing the world try to catch up. And I know that USA basketball doesn't like it, so we're finding even better players. We're finding even bigger players, stronger, faster, more versatile, to be able to compete against that. And USA basketball will find them. I have no doubt about that. Working with several guys out there associated with USA basketball. Namely, I had the opportunity to network quite a bit with Don Showalter this past summer at the Crossroads League camp that they do in Kansas City. And so that was a good opportunity to really see, hey, what are they looking for? And one of the biggest trends that you'll hear several people complain about it all the time, but the fact is the game's getting more versatile, and so that includes influx of a lot more size.
Yeah.
And so you're seeing that being one of those important factors that in order for us to go out and really compete, we have to have that greater influx of size. One of the best examples of that size and versatility that I see with that class coming up, CJ Rosser. It played this past year for the U16 team. and they went out and he showed a lot of versatility in his game. Had an opportunity whenever he was first starting to get his name out there. Watch him play against Baba, who's going to be going to Maryland starting this next year. So I think that you're able to see those players with their size and their versatility starting to make an impact and drawing more and more attention at the college level.
Yeah, yeah, that there's. I don't think there's any doubt, and I think
Yeah.
there's any stopping it. We're seeing it, like you said, we're seeing it at AAU levels. I think it almost every, even at the big shots level. I think in almost every tournament that I have personally been to, with my son or my sons in the last few years, there's been an international team, from somewhere there,
Yeah.
Um, and then I know, have you seen, because they play, I think, in mostly the uh, shoe circuit events, live events. Have you seen the teams from Australia that have come over
Yeah.
and played in those? I think they mostly play out west, but I that's
Yeah, I know that Pro 16 in particular has a
yeah,
team right now out of Australia that comes over. And they are fundamentally sound. They play old, like what I would refer to as old school basketball.
right,
Pass, dribble, shoot.
yeah,
Not a whole lot of just stagnant basketball,
yeah,
but still having fundamental shooters, fundamental movements, and at the same time, those are skills that are always going to translate.
everywhere.
And so being able to see that influx of Australian players is very unique because the style that a lot of American players are used to playing, especially in the AAU season, is very different from what they're bringing over to play in AAU. So being able to see that contrast in styles is a pleasure. I enjoy watching, multiple different styles of basketball, the levels and how they're able to compete against each other, because there are some of those fundamental skills in team basketball that they're very valuable to college coaches.
Yes,
And so just making sure that they're still able to see those intangible skills, those fundamentals, along with the size, physicality, strength, versatility, is it all comes together,
it does.
and college coaches are going to find their perfect mix of it at the next level.
Yeah, I think those. I think we're going to see. I really feel like the Australians are going to make a big push into college basketball for sure, and eventually, we'll see a bigger number of them in the NBA eventually. But
Yeah.
I would
I
love.
think immediately the work that they're doing, I would say specifically in Africa, the work that they're doing to get their players to the States is something that I've noticed more. You've got countries like Egypt has started really showing quite a bit, Nigeria, Guinea, um, South Sudan, as I mentioned earlier. Those countries are really starting to develop their players with versatility because they already have the measurables.
Yeah,
And so by working on those kind of things, it is very helpful for that country. And I would actually anticipate Africa, especially with their development through NBA Academy. I know that there are several different continents and countries that have started to implement that, but NBA Academy out of Africa is really getting a lot of momentum, and I would foresee them being able to develop players and infrastructure maybe at a more rapid pace than what we would expect here in the States, and maybe what some other countries and continents are expecting as well.
yeah, I think you're right. And another interesting thing I heard, and I think this is true, um, that a lot of going back to the Australians is a lot of families, for reasons of because of the different conflicts, military conflicts or whatever they may be, that a lot of families have left Sudan and or South Sudan and moved to Australia. So a lot of those kids are there now, and so you think about that, and it's like, wow, we're in trouble. We're in big trouble now. Those guys are over there learning the game for in that Australian structure, and it's like, geez, I mean, it just I just feel like it's just a matter of time
Yeah.
before they're really wow. I mean, but there's a big part of me that kind of looks forward to it. I can't. I mean, like I want to go watch those like those Australian teams that we're talking about. I think it's AUSA that brings the kids over here from Australia. Like I want to go
Yeah.
watch them. I want to go see. I want to see what that looks like in person. I really, really do. And I'm going to make it one of these days to see them somewhere. But I just it's interesting. I'm not mad at
Yeah.
it. I'm not concerned or whatever. I just think it's interesting. And I guess you just have to think of that. You said it's become a global. It's just you have to think about it as a global game, like it just is. So we we don't think of. There's so many other sports that we don't that are very very international.
Yeah.
We don't really think about it that way, But we hold basketball and baseball to, so close to our heart. We want American kids to be out there. We want American guys, but we got to kind of let that go, and just embrace, just good basketball, and really no matter what continent the players are from. So.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, college coaches want the best of the best, and sometimes you just got to go out, put the ball on at center court, and say whoever wants it more is gonna go and get that, whether that be our players that we have here in the states or those that are coming from overseas to come in and show what they have
Yeah.
and prove that they have what it takes at the college level, and then also as we've seen in the NBA.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I, told somebody a year or two ago that I would go take an obscure NAIA team, and I would bring in 2 6'8" Australian kids, and I would play high low while everybody else was playing 5 out, and I would beat everybody's ass in 2 years, and then everybody would copycat me, just like Jim Crutchfield did up at West Liberty, and just everybody thought he was nuts, but like, and then I watched Purdue this year, and Matt Painter stole my idea. He literally stole my idea because his guys are 7'2", 7'3", and so I'll let him have it. He can go ahead and play that way, but I
Yeah.
but those are that's to me that's the biggest part of how those kids are going to change. I think they're going to change it from the inside out. That's so now how do you counter that? How do you counter those guys that are playing for Illinois and playing for Florida that are 7 foot, 7'1", 7'2"? They all can pass, they all can move, they all can guard, and what do you got to do? You got to go
Yeah.
get your own guys like that. Where are you going to go get them? Are they in California? There might be a couple, but if you want one and you want one that's probably a little bit older, you're going to go to Lithuania, or you're going to go to Germany, or wherever the place may be. So it's kind of an arms race probably right now between some of these college coaches to grab these. I would love to know what kind of budget they have just trying to scout and evaluate and find. I'll bet it's pretty wild some of the things that they do to try to find kids in Europe and in Australia and in Africa. Like it's probably pretty crazy, but like you said, some of the things the NBA kind of setting up shop over there, some of those things are gonna help for sure.
Yeah.
And eventually just make the game better.
Yeah, and I know that there is a tendency to push size. Also though, at the end of the day, if nobody can get the ball to those big men, said they're not going to be able to put the ball in the hoop.
Yeah.
And so, having that strong backcourt's not going anywhere.
No.
You've still got to have guys who are at a very high level able to, pass, catch, and shoot, and light it up from three. I know a lot of teams out there this year that, because of their 3-point ability, were serious threats to some of those teams that had those larger players on the inside. And so it's about there's positions. As much as everybody preaches kind of positionless basketball, everybody maybe doesn't have a position but has a role.
Right.
And if you come in knowing your role and how to play that role, it's going to be very useful to a coach, no matter what system that they're running.
Yeah, and at that highest level, like we're talking about with, Big Ten team, the Illinois and the UConns, and it's not, it's not just who has the best players. Everybody has the best players. It's a real chess match, just like you said. You've got these bigs out here, but the other team might counter it with some smaller, better shooting guys. I mean, it really is. I think one thing is the best coaches in the country are going to kind of rise to the top and stay there. And I think that we've seen that mostly already. Like the guys that are because everybody has good players, everybody has size, everybody has. Those top 12 or 15 teams in the country they're all stacked, so you got to coach your way out of it, not just load up with, talent. Like those guys have, their scouting must be so intense that, it's probably rivals NFL coaching staffs, but.
I know you got to remember, you can't just make an impact. Not everybody's going to make an impact on the scoreboard whenever it comes to putting the ball in the hoop. But you're going to have a lot of guys out there who are able to be connectors and facilitators at that point guard position. You could ask probably anybody. There's nothing I love more than watching a good true point guard. And I was super thrilled whenever I had the privilege of watching him come up through AAU basketball quite a bit. Elliot Cadeau over in Michigan, and they said multiple times this season that he's not the best shooter, but he can facilitate like crazy. And then you got to kind of see both of those things come true in full circle in the national championship this year. Because he was able to put up about, I think it was 15 to 18 points and still getting about 5-6 assists in the whole game. So really finding those players who they can play their role. I love watching a good point guard. Nothing better than doing that. But finding those guys who come in, play their role, and are able to contribute in multiple different ways to the game.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Grady Majors, this has been one of the most interesting basketball conversations I've had. We could probably talk here for another 3 or 4 hours, but I won't torture you with that. But
we thought it was going to go short, so we almost ended up maxing out.
15 minutes.
Could have gone all night. So
and,
perfect.
I told you I can fill it up with the best of them as far as BS, but. Man, let's have you on again here in a couple months, and talk a little bit more about the AU stuff, and now that we got to know you and know a little bit about you, we can really drill down on some of the AU stuff and who you're seeing, and maybe get a little more specific on some players and guys you've seen at some different events. I'd love to do that with you. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I hope. I hope a lot of kids get to see this and take a lot of your points. You had so many great points that apply to kids at every level that are in high school right now and looking to play at the next level. And it's if they take your advice, it's going to be a big help to them for sure. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's been a great time. I think one of the best parts about doing stuff like this is being able to share some of that knowledge. So I'm not ever going to promise to be an expert, but I've been told I'm kind of a sponge. So hopefully over the next couple of months, we'll come back with plenty of names
Yeah,
to start dropping, and probably some of those guys that you and the rest of the country haven't heard of yet,
sure.
because I love going and watching those younger guys play.
Awesome.
So we'll be out here and ready when we're back.
Yeah. So where are you going to be this weekend?
So this weekend, I've been on the road for the past 3 weeks. I might actually take a little bit of a break. We'll see. Um, it doesn't mean I'm not going to be watching basketball. It just means I
Right.
may not be on the road. But yeah, no, I've got plans. I've got my schedule all planned out, so we'll be a little bit everywhere. I know that with that comment about players traveling all over the country, so it makes it where I can stay a little bit closer to home, going to Memphis, Kansas City,
Right.
Dallas, Oklahoma City. All of it's within about 4 or 5 hours of me, so makes it easy for me to get to some of
Right.
those metro areas and watch some of the best.
Yeah, for sure. Um, well, dude, let's reconnect here in a couple months and talk about what you got going on, and really interesting. And again, I want to thank you for coming on and taking the time and let me run a half hour late getting started, and this has been awesome. This has been awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah, if they can get something out of it, it's all worth the wait.
Absolutely.
So glad to be on and look forward to the next time.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you then. Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.